Hi everybody,
in Europe.
my name is Bob. We're going to do this presentation in 3 parts. I'm going to do the first part in 5 minutes. Then we're going to pass over to our European head of workshops, Elvis. He's going to do the next part. And then finally, Max, who's the brains of the organisation, is going to do the intelligent part. So my bit's about change, really, and preparing for the future. That was my first car. It wasn't a black one, by the way. It was a white one, but hey, you know. It was a grey car. Paid £50 for it, and I sold it for £100. And I used to do my own work on it. Well, I used to work on cars. I don't do that anymore. Too complicated for me now. And this guy's Charles Darwin, and he said it's not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, etc., but those that adapt cooperatively to change. And that's what's going to happen, you know, in this industry over the next few years. And it's already happening. So I've just ordered a Transit Connect for myself. I go fishing. And guess what? It's made by VW and Ford now. It's not just made by Ford. But he also said something more interesting. He said, the only thing that's certain in life is that things will change, and that the pace of change will continually accelerate. And that's what's happening. So we're in the middle of the digital revolution now. Now, when I left college, after my A-level, I didn't go to university. I'm not clever enough, really. That's not the reason, but I'm not clever enough either. I joined Woolworths, so I became a retailer. Fantastic company. And I joined them in 1974. I left in 1984 when Woolworths told me, we're going to go up market. It's like Marks and Spencer saying we're going to become a pound shop. It was never going to work, and I thought, right, I'm off. I'm not going to stay here. But it took until 2009 after I left for it to go bust. But when it did go bust, there was 807 locations and 27,000 employees who lost the job. And there was a guy called Charles Handy, and I attended a lecture, and he wrote a book called Understanding Organisations. And I think this applies to all organisations, but it applies to garages as well. And what he says is businesses don't go bust overnight. You don't wake up in the morning and like you've got no customers. It just doesn't happen that way. And this is what happened to Woolworths, by the way. So the analogy is there's a tribe in South America and they eat frogs. That's their staple diet. So what they do is they catch the frogs, and they've got this big cauldron. They put them in the cauldron, and then they heat the thing up gently. And the frogs get comfortable. And it says, this is all right. I'll stay here. And then it gets warmer and warmer, and the frog gets cooked. And it dies. And that's what happens to organizations. And that's what I think the industry has to be careful of, because when you think about it, we all think the changes to EV and everything are going to be very slow, but all of a sudden, if you're not careful, you don't watch it, you don't make the changes you need to make to become ready to deal with the future, then you become the frog. Now, if you just got the frogs and gathered them and put them in boiling water, guess what? They just jump out. So, and that's why businesses don't go bust overnight. So that's my analogy for you to think about. You probably don't need to think about it, because the very fact that you're here means you're probably already thinking about these things anyway. So I'm going to pass you over to the mighty Elvis now.
Thank you. So, as you got from this initial speech, is that change is the only constant, and especially in our industry, we know that we are today facing many changes. So, let's see which are the main trends that are going on in the markets. Sorry, let's do that. So we have some of the trends here. We consider the major trends. And let's do an exercise together and see which are the ones that are, at the moment, most worrying you for the future of the activity. So connectivity. How many of you believe that connectivity is an important change that they're going to have an impact on your activity? Raise your hand. Okay. And electrification. Yeah? No? Not much? Okay. ADAS. So, yeah, everybody agree? And what about cybersecurity? Also. So, digitalization. Yeah, not much? And shared mobility. Is that something that is worrying you? Maybe not. So, but these are all changes that are happening today. And if we are not able to face them and to be able to, let's say, live and work with these changes, then the probability that we are gonna be in trouble, yeah, is very high. So then we know what is gonna happen or what is happening, and as LKQ or Eurocar Parts, we have the solutions to help you how to face these changes. So I pass the floor to my colleague here.
Oh, no, I don't. Okay. A little quicker than I think. So, how can we support you then, is what we're thinking about. And what are these changes that are going to affect us, okay? So, looking around the room then, who drove here today in a car? Everybody. Who came down with something like cruise control on the car? Yeah. Did you use it or not use it or whatever? Okay. Okay. How many then had ADAS on the car? Yeah, some kind of ADAS. Yep. Okay. Who came here in an electric vehicle or a hybrid? That's interesting, isn't it? So, the fact is, with these technological advancements then in the industry, we're 5 times more likely to see a car with ADAS on at the moment in the aftermarket. And with this current lull of new car availability, that means that it's going to be around an aging process in the vehicles that we're going to see into the independent market as a result of that. And when hybrids and EVs do come through, they will have ADAS fitted to them. What about diagnostic security gateway? Anybody struggling with that at the moment? Anybody having any challenges with that? Anybody done a service on a Fiat 500 and not been able to put the service light out? Okay. That's happening around us, and we're seeing more and more of that as it develops. What about coding? Anybody fitted a BMW steering rack? Not coded it? So all those things are going to start to happen more and more as the vehicle market gets more and more technologically advanced, and often this is driven by the market demands, legislation, and even down to customers' expectation of those features that they want on the vehicles going forward. And as independents, that's why you're sitting here, you're going to need to repair those as we go forward in the future, okay? Because imagine taking your car to a garage and being told, no, sorry, you've got to take it to a main dealer, I'm not able to support that function for you. That's what we've got to get away from. So, thinking about the future then, how many of you have a business plan? Okay. Well, a business plan doesn't necessarily have to be something that's long and drawn out. It can be as simple as, where are you now? Put a foot on the ball and then decide what you're going to do. Where do you want to be? What have you got to invest in to get there? And then finally, how are you going to get there? What skill set are you going to need? What equipment are you going to need? And then finally, off the back of that, once you get there, how are you going to communicate that to your market and what do you do with it? Simple as that. So what I want to talk about briefly then is 3 things that we cover that we can offer you to talk about and give some thought to the process of development. Training, helpline, and remote services. Those are the 3 things that we're going to talk about. So, why is LKQ investing in training? Anybody got an idea? Quite simply, we're trying to provide an alternative for the consumer. Because as the vehicles get more and more complex and the restrictions get bigger on the access to the vehicles, that's going to drive the independent market out of the business. And if we're out of the business, if you're out of the business rather, we're out of the business. Simple as that. It's quite shameless, isn't it? But, you know, we're a parts company. We sell parts. We need to be able to make that choice of giving the consumers choice of where it is. That's what we're here. I'm not going to talk to you about the individual prospectus that the LKQ Academy offer. The guys on the stand can talk to you about that and the unlimited training packages that we offer within the business. they're happy to go through that and the individual courses of what they contain and the content of that's there. But what are the benefits of training? It sounds like an obvious question, doesn't it? But really, this is about productivity, profitability and workflow. So training gives you the ability to get the job done quicker. That's what we're talking about, okay? And if you're getting the job done quicker, you're able to get more jobs in. And if you get more jobs in, you become more profitable. If you get more training, you also become the early adapters of things like EVs in your area. How many of you send jobs out to other garages in your area? Think about that, because that's where you're losing bookable hours in your business. That's what we've got to think about. What about the costs? Okay, everybody talks about costs, and you'll go around the show and you'll talk about people and they'll talk about hundreds of pounds for an individual training session. Again, check out the unlimited packages that we offer. But the cost, if you don't train, is more important. Because at the moment, most people say to us, I can't afford to send somebody out to do the training because I lose the business on the day. But think about how much business that you're going to be losing if you start to turn those jobs away continually. And the cost of the training can very quickly be absorbed by those non-bookable hours that you're putting in. That's what you've got to think about. Also, if you've got a group of technicians in your business, what are they going to do? If we don't train them, what will happen to their skill set? Therefore, you spend more time diagnosing the vehicle rather than repairing it. So now is the time really to consider that training is an investment, and I know with everything that's going on in the economic climate, but the strongest will survive. Back to Bob's introduction of where we've got to be. So now's the time to invest in what you're doing. Helpline. How many of you use a helpline currently? Sometimes, maybe, not thought about it, too expensive. Well, the importance of a helpline is that a helpline bridges the gap between training and experience. So it's like having the diagnostic technician, the OEM technician at the end of the phone to guide you through that. That's what a helpline is there for. That's what it's there for. It helps give you more information readily available that you wouldn't necessarily get from your information provider, whether it's Haynes Pro, Autodata, or any of the others that are there. And it also gives you access to service bulletins and also a database of information that we've collated through our helpline experience. So you may only be seeing one of these jobs at a time, whereas the helpline may have seen that same job 30, 40 times already and can pass on the experience of doing that. The benefits of the helpline then, you can also use the helpline to validate an expensive repair. So something like a BMW steering rack or a Land Rover compressor, where you're spending up to £800 north of in components, quick call to the helpline, I've done this, I've done that, do you think it's this? Based on their experience, it can assist you in making that decision and that diagnosis. That's where helplines come in. But a helpline's only really useful as well if you've got an element of training to support you with it as well. Because they will ask you to perform certain tasks, to go through the procedures, and if you can't do that, that's when you start to struggle. So training is important to help you with your helpline as well. That's the basis. Finally, remote services then. Okay, so why are remote services going to be important to us, and why do we need them now, and what's the future for your handheld diagnostics? I'm sure all of you have got some level of handheld diagnostics in your business. Okay, probably 2 or 3 manufacturers that you've got. When's it time to update them? When did you last update them? What's the cost of updating them? All of the handheld manufacturers at the moment making tools have got a limitation on them because they have to reverse engineering all the manufacturer's information. And as this complexity that Elvis spoke about briefly on the vehicles has to be reverse manufactured. I worked for a diagnostic manufacturer for many years, and we had to make decisions on where we were going to invest the development funds. So at some point, they have their place and they have limited functionality for things like caliper wind back or coding batteries currently and things like that. But you're going to get to a stage where you can't use a standalone tool, and your next generation of diagnostic tool will have to be connected to the internet. If it's not connected to the internet, it won't be able to have access to secure gateway, therefore won't be able to get into the products. And as the vehicle manufacturers get more complex, that's going to be a challenge for us. So are there alternatives to an individual handheld piece of diagnostics then? Well, yes, there are. So you've got the OEM tools, and some of you may have invested in those already, but unless you're a specialist and you're buying a specific brand to do a specific brand, like a Mercedes dealer or a BMW dealer or whatever, how then do you compete with everything that's out in the market? There are over 40 active brands in the UK and an onset of more coming with the wave of Chinese brands that are coming in as well in the UK. And some of these manufacturers don't allow you to overlay the same operating system on top of each other in the laptop. So you could end up with multiple laptops to have secure gateways through BMW, Volkswagen, PSA to do that. That's going to be a challenge for you guys. So the benefits of remote coding then, what's that for us? Okay. Well, simply put, it's the ability to code the part like a steering rack or a Land Rover compressor at the point of doing it, without having to go through a complicated network gateway to get through that. We take control of that for you and do it for you on that basis. We've recently introduced this in the US. It will be coming into the UK by the fourth quarter of this year. There is no secret to this. The way that the vehicle manufacturers are going means that you need to have access with the vehicle manufacturer. That's the way that this will be done. We'll do it in a basis that we'll sell you the part and the code at the same time, and we'll either offer the service as a rental or for repeat users. When you start getting into it or it becomes more prevalent, then you can buy the components as well to do it. No different to anybody else. So, 3 brief things that we just wanted to talk to you about today, to think about where do we go with development of your business. So, just to recap them. Training. Consider the costs of training, not necessarily how much you're going to spend on it, but what you're currently losing in your business and your non-bookable hours. If you're not necessarily getting the workflow in, is that because you're turning jobs away? Have you turned jobs away with customers? Have you part finished the job and sent them to a main dealer to have the light turned out or the ADAS calibration? That's the thing to consider. The helpline, okay, goes hand in hand with the training. The development of helpline will give you the instant access to the information, but it won't necessarily go into the coding of the remote services that's required. So as you look at your business in the next 2 to 3 years, you need to start thinking about where do you need to invest. The one that I didn't touch on then is on training was the ability to retain your staff. Okay, how many of them are asking for pay rises at the moment? Okay, so you're going to end up giving them pay rises for what? Doing the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So you could perhaps tie in training with them to be a conditional element of what they do, and that you'll pledge them to develop their skill set, which in terms helps your profitability and productivity within your business, and then perhaps put a retention on that, so if you leave within 12 months, you've got to pay me the training cost back. That's a possibility to do it. But this is how you will succeed in going past the current crisis that we have in terms of skill shortage within the industry. Does anybody know currently I heard a figure yesterday from the IMI that how many technician vacancies there are in the industry? Anybody want to guess? 24,000. 24,000 technician vacancies in the industry at the moment. So losing an employee at the moment could cost you a lot more than a training course in this, because whoever you bring back in, you've got to pay more to get past it. So that was our brief talk then on that. If there's any questions or anything, the three of us will perhaps offer some answers. Other than that, thank you for your time.